This is episode 104 of the 99 Forever podcast. I'm Eric Friesen, and my guest tonight is making his debut on the podcast. He's a YouTube content creator and panelist on the Heavy Hockey podcast, The Oilers Fanatic, Patrick Phillips. Patrick, it's great to finally have you on the show.
It's been a long, long time coming, Eric. We've been talking about this since I joined Heavy Hockey, I think back around November, December 2024. So excited that we're finally getting a chance to do this.
Yeah, man, and it was great, running into you at an Oilers game last October, and uh, I know you're a huge Ike Howard fan, and that night we got to see him score his first goal at Rogers Place. So, I mean, for you, that must have been huge.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, just early on, I got to meet his family when they were coming in for the season opener there against the Calgary Flames.
Oh,
So
it's cool.
got to meet his family. I've got to meet him a couple times. Got an autograph my new Oilers cream jersey from this past year. So yeah, being there to see that goal was really really special for sure.
Yeah, and it didn't get off to that great of a start against the Utah Mammoth that night, but
No,
apparently they got ripped between the first and second intermission because they came out looking like a completely new team in the second period, took over the game, and ended up winning 6-3, I believe.
yeah, something around there. Yeah, I think it was like 2-0 or 3-1 or something after the first, and yeah, just a complete turnaround there. So, and he was a big part of that. So yeah, no, fantastic hockey game, and shout out to Oilers super fan Russ Jericho who gifted me the tickets to that game that night. So
Oh,
I
that's
was
awesome.
there thanks to my good buddy Russ.
Yeah, and Russ is a mutual friend that we have, and I was
Yeah.
hoping that I was going to get to meet him for the first time because he was on my podcast about 2 years ago, and we've probably known each other for even a year before that. But he just flew back to the UK, I think, just days before I came out to Edmonton. So it was too bad that it didn't line up there that we all couldn't have got together for a game.
Yeah, too bad. Yeah, I mean, I felt bad for him because yeah, he was so excited that he won those tickets, but then he unfortunately was gonna be unable to use them. But yeah, I was excited to get the opportunity to go, and yeah, we can talk more about Russ, but
Yeah.
fantastic guy.
Oh yeah.
Spent some quality time with him this past summer, and I know you've interviewed him, and yeah,
Hmm.
just salt of the earth, that guy.
Oh yeah, I mean we're both big stats guys. He and I probably talk. I mean during the season especially, we probably talk on an almost daily basis about just whatever the big milestones or stats that Oilers players are chasing at the time. So that's awesome. And like you were saying, we did meet up at the Oilers game back in late October, and then we got to hang out again at the Heavy Hockey Showdown in February. So that was cool that we got to do that as well. You were documenting the whole thing. Just but before we go on, what were some of your best takeaways or memories from that weekend?
Oh, just the whole thing. I just love the whole theme behind it. Raising money for the Sexual Assault Center of Edmonton, and the great, amazing group of people at Heavy Hockey. Just ever since I joined it, right from you, Michael, Dash, Lotzi, Bob, the goalie. I mean, just an amazing group of guys, and just love being a part of that weekend. It just flies by so quickly. You're
It
looking
does.
forward to it for a whole year, and just in the blink of an eye, it's over. And I guess when something goes by that quickly, you know it's because you're having such an amazing time and just getting to meet everybody and spending that special time raising the money for that amazing cause. I mean, you're hard pressed to have a better weekend than you do when you're celebrating and being a part of that event.
And we got to see an Oilers win that weekend as well. The following, I wasn't sitting with you guys because I had already bought my ticket ahead of time. Were you at the game? First of all, I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah, I was up. Yeah, I was up
Okay.
with the rest of the guys in the Sky Lounge there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping to run into everyone. It didn't end up working out, but I mean, we got to see Connor McDavid pick up 3 assists that night in a win. Leon Draisaitl scored his final goal of the regular season, unfortunately, because he was injured that night as well. And I mean, at the time, it looked like it was only, the initial reports were it might be 10 days, and then it obviously went 6 weeks until the playoffs came around. And I think if it wasn't playoff hockey, he probably wouldn't have even been back at that time.
No, probably not. And yeah, we lost so many guys down the stretch there, and we got them all back for the playoffs. But we saw in that first round just how far they still were away from being the players that they are. But yeah, so it was a great, game that night, but obviously really crappy to see Draisaitl go down in that fashion.
And it's been exactly 4 weeks since the Edmonton Oilers were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs by the Anaheim Ducks. Have you been watching a lot of playoff hockey this past month, or are you taking a bit of a break and mostly just following the Oilers off-season news?
I am catching things here and there, but I don't think I've watched anything from start to finish.
Yeah.
I am kind of taking a bit of a break, spending a bit more time with my wife Laura. I mean, these last two playoff runs, they've been really special, of course, but it does take up a lot of your time. It's a lot of nights where you don't get much sleep because even after the game's over, I'm doing a video and that keeps me up for a while longer. And obviously, playoff hockey, there's a lot of adrenaline. It's hard to go to sleep. So not many people in Edmonton and oil country fans are getting much sleep during those playoff runs, but it is kind of nice to have a little bit of a break for everybody, players, fans included. But from what I've watched, there has been some fantastic hockey for sure, but definitely missing the Oilers and looking forward to getting back to it full steam next year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm pretty much the same as you. I don't think I've watched a full game since the Oilers season ended, but I'll catch a period or two of another series here and there. And I mean, in 3 of the previous 4 years, the Oilers were playing hockey into June. And if we go even beyond that, they won a playoff series for 4 years straight. I mean, that kind of consistency doesn't happen. You look at even the best teams in the NHL to win one round for 4 straight years, even though it was the same opponent for the Oilers all 4 times. Like the Tampa Bay Lightning are one of the premier teams in the league. They haven't won a series since they won, or since they lost in the 2022 Stanley Cup final, I should say. The Colorado Avalanche, since winning their cup in 2022, they've bowed out in either the first or second round in the previous 3 years before reaching the conference final and losing this year. So, yeah, I mean, it's been pretty special that we've had the opportunity to see the Oilers go on these deep runs, as I said, in 3 of the past 4 seasons, and hopefully there's going to be more of those years to come with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl leading the way. And basically, when you're so used to having playoff hockey to talk about at this time of year, it's a little disappointing that they didn't go on another run. But do you think that having an extra 2 or 2.5 months off to rest and recover this summer could actually be a blessing in disguise for this group?
Oh, absolutely. This team needed the rest. I mean, they're not going to say that they wanted the rest or anything like that, but when it gets down to it, how much hockey they've played, like you were just going over it there, this team was due for a break. And I just don't think, if everyone's being honest, just with the injuries they were facing, that even if they had got past the Anaheim Ducks and if they were even a little bit healthier, I think they would have. But they would have been hard pressed to take down one of the real big powerhouses this year. They
Yeah.
just, I don't think you could just kind of tell they were health wise, energy wise, they just didn't quite have it. And I think this reset is going to be just crucial for everyone. The injuries they were facing, like you get some extra time off to heal those up. And I think we are going to finally see the Edmonton Oilers with the importance of this year, especially for Connor McDavid, that they're going to want to start out strong. And
Yeah.
they always talk a big game, but at the same time, they've been coming off those long playoff runs. So this is the first year in a while where they can actually take a summer to reset. I think there's going to be some exciting changes made over the summer, and I think they're going to hit the ball rolling in October, September. I mean, I know we always want to think that and say that, but I think this year we might actually see it happen.
For sure. And, since the start of the 2021-22 season, the Oilers have played 491 games, including playoffs, which is the most by any team in the NHL during that span. So this team has played a ton of hockey over the past 5 seasons. And considering the injuries they had in the playoffs this year, this might sound like sour grapes because, I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from the Anaheim Ducks. They are a young, exciting upstart team. But if you have a healthy Connor McDavid, a healthy Leon Draisaitl, and a healthy Jason Dickinson as your top three centers, I'm going to take my chances that the Oilers are going to come out on top in that series. And like I said, Ducks fans will say that that's, loser mentality and it's got to be next man up. But I mean, you can say it's an excuse, but it is a factor. Tell me any other team that could lose a player of McDavid's ilk or Dreisaitl's ilk. And yes, they're playing in the lineup, but they're obviously compromised. You can't make up for that. who would have picked the Colorado Avalanche to beat the Vegas Golden Knights in the conference final? I'd love to know how many people predicted that, and no one would have called a sweep. But for that to happen, when you have Nathan McKinnon who's hurt and Cale Makar who's hurt, it just shows it doesn't matter what team it is. If you take the best two players out of that lineup or have them playing at less than 100%, your chances are reduced. And I think even though, as we talked about, it is a good thing that they are going to have that rest now, it's frustrating that they weren't able to capitalize on this opportunity because I look at the Oilers teams of the past 2 years beating Dallas. I think that this team, if they could have kept that group together, they would have breezed past the Avalanche with the injuries they have. And you never want to wish injuries on anyone. I would never do that, even to my most bitter rival. However, it's just kind of unfortunate that when the Oilers ran into the Panthers, they were the more banged up team. And it never seemed to work the other way where the Oilers run into opponent who are kind of playing at less than 100%.
For sure, and I think the Panthers too, they were able to make some additions through, the LTIR rules and
Oh
stuff
yeah, I
before
mean,
the
what a
Oilers.
joke that was. I mean,
Yeah,
Seth Jones gets a 20-game suspension and they're allowed
yeah,
to use the cap space. I mean, if anything, that was more of an advantage than a punishment.
yeah. No, just adding getting to add guys like that and Brad Marchand as your third line center. I mean, yeah, I mean, the Oilers got to take a little bit of advantage of it with Evander Kane in their final year, but really they were never a team that really utilized that. And
No,
obviously that rule is gone now. But shoulda, woulda, coulda. I mean,
I know.
they had their
It's
opportunities, but
it's a
yeah,
tough break. I mean,
yeah,
Draisaitl was injured in the first time they made the final in 2024. They had a bunch of other players playing at, you know, who knows even what percent they don't really want to reveal how hurt guys were, what the injuries are. Especially this year, the Oilers were fairly secretive about what the injury state of their guys was. And of course, we should mention Evan Bouchard was hurt at the World Championships today with a dangerous hit to the head. And thankfully, I listened to Stan Bowman on Bob Stauffer's show, and he said that it looked worse than it was, and that Bouch should be ready to go and feeling good by training camp. But anytime you're dealing with head injuries, it's scary. So I'll just kind of wrap it up by saying it is a good thing to sort of echo your thoughts. I'm hoping that they can use this time off. They've been having off seasons that were half this length for the past couple of years. So to have 4.5 months off to recharge the batteries and hopefully come back healthy and ready to take another shot at winning the cup in 2027.
yeah, for sure. And I don't think you can also look at this year as totally demoralizing. I think they can see the reasons why they were knocked out. It wasn't because they were a terrible team or they're so far behind on other things. This is a
Yeah.
team that can come back and hit the ball rolling right away in training camp. They're just lack of energy, health wise. It was just time for this team to take a break. And like you said, it would have been nice to see them go on a run
Yeah.
with the teams that they could have faced and the predicaments they were in. But at the same time, you just never know how these situations are going to work out. And I think this will be a blessing in disguise for the
Oh, yeah.
Oilers and be able to start off strong next year.
Without a doubt. And I know there is some, well, I shouldn't say some, a lot of frustration about having a 93-point season and, clearly taking a step back from the year before. But I try to look at it a positive way. I mean, yes, there's probably a lot of wear on the tires after going on such deep playoff runs right till the end of June the past 2 years. But I mean, you think about it, there was at least 4 or 5 games that the Oilers could have won this year that they should have won and ended up coming out on the wrong end of the stick. And if you have a healthy Leon Draisaitl for the full year, or a healthy Zach Hyman, I think it's safe to say this team would have been at least over 100 points again. And then maybe you're not looking at it through such a bleak lens of thinking, oh, this team might be aging out, or is their window closing? Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are still two of the best players in the league. Zach Hyman at age 33, while coming back from a major injury, was scoring at an over a 40-goal pace. uh, Most of the core is still playing at a very high level. Now you need to bring in more pieces to support them, but that's going to be an episode for another day. They've got a whole summer to reload this team and get ready for another run. But tonight in particular, we're going to be discussing which of the Oilers' pending UFAs and RFAs they should re-sign, and what the cost might be to keep them in Edmonton. But Patrick, since you're a first-time guest on the show, I want to start tonight by hearing a little bit about your own background as an Oilers fan. So let's just start at the beginning. When did you first get interested in hockey, and how did you become an Oilers fan?
Well, I got my start fairly young. I was actually born in London, Ontario, and my parents divorced, and I moved out here with my mom and stepdad and sister. And around the age of 8, I went to my very first Oilers game against the Vancouver Canucks, and that was kind of where my fandom started with the Edmonton Oilers. I wasn't really big into any kind of a sport, but hockey was just immediately drew me in, and I just loved obviously cheering for the local team. I've always been a big fan of the color blue, so obviously too, just the Oilers colors really drew me in as well. So around the age of 8 is when I became an Edmonton Oilers fan, and my interest in hockey started.
And who was your favorite Oilers player when you were a kid, and why?
So my first favorite Oilers were goaltender Bill Ranford and defenseman Dave Manson. I remember, well, I don't have to remember. I have, I still have the jersey in my closet here. My very first Oilers jersey was a Bill Ranford jersey. Fits nicely on my arm now, but yeah, he was a fantastic goaltender. I had a Bill Ranford poster on my bedroom wall there. Was a big fan of him. Was really sad the day that he moved on to Boston, but obviously that started off the Curtis Joseph era. So
He did come
nice
back
little
though
bounce.
and kind of wrap up his career in Edmonton, though.
Yeah, he did. So yeah, it was great to have him back, and Dave Manson was drawn to him as well. Kind of a bit of an embarrassing thing, but I was a little kid, so I was a big Full House fan, and I thought Dave
Oh,
Manson looked like Joey off of Full House. So
Dave
that's kind of what,
Coulier.
yeah. So that kind of drew me to Dave Manson as
You
well.
know what? I don't think that's embarrassing. I watched Full House growing up my whole life. I mean, I think if you were a kid in the 90s, you probably did. I'd like to find how many people didn't watch that show. Uh, I never thought about that comparison, but now I'm gonna have to go compare the pictures. And you know what? Dave Coulier actually is a big hockey fan.
Yeah, he's a Red Wings fan, I
He
believe. Yeah,
is, yeah.
yeah.
And that's genuine. And I like that they worked that into the show because he is from Michigan and he would wear his Red Wings jersey um, in scenes on the show. So that's kind of cool. Um, and I want to know, what do you remember about your first Oilers game? When was it? Who was it against? Did anything memorable happen that night?
So I can't remember too much about it. I was able to remember from the details I was able to remember. I looked up the date here for the video. So my first Oilers game was November 18th, 1992. I did remember it was against the Vancouver Canucks and that the Oilers won 4-2 that night. And the other thing that stays in my memory is Brent Gilchrist was on the program cover that night.
Okay.
So other than that, it's just kind of brief flashes in my mind, but I do remember it was the Oilers Canucks. Canucks were wearing their black jerseys, and the Oilers won 4-2.
Nice. So, I mean, this would have been very early in your fandom then, right?
Yeah, very early, a very first game. So I just kind of, yeah, I was 8 years old, just kind of figuring it all out there. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
So you would have seen, I mean, still quite a few of the legends were on the team by that point, wouldn't they have been from the 80s?
yeah, for sure. See if I still have the.
Now they did start to move on because the Oilers missed the playoffs for the first time in franchise history that year in 92, 93. So that was
Yeah,
sort of the end of the dynasty because they had made, even after winning the cup in 90, they had made the conference final again in 91, 92. So I think you can still say that you would have been in attendance for some, pretty special players that night.
for sure. Yeah, I was just obviously so new to it, so most of it didn't
It
really.
didn't resonate as much.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
didn't
now
resonate.
it
Yeah.
now you can sort of look back and appreciate it. Like Messier
Mhm.
would have been gone by then. I'm trying to think. Anderson and uh, Lowe would. No, I think Lowe might have still been there at that time. Anderson would have moved on. Obviously, Curry. Those would be in the years leading up to that. But yeah, I mean, it was still a team that had gone on. eight conference final appearances at least in the previous 10 years. And then they finally missed the playoffs in 93 before a 4-year hiatus, which at the time was the worst period in Oilers history. There's been a few that have trumped that since then, uh, but then obviously came back in the 96 97 season, which is around the time that I started watching hockey too. So, I mean, that must have also been an exciting time for you after, following the team for a few years to see them, they had changed the jersey by then, and now they're back in the playoffs with a completely new group.
Yeah, for sure. Like seeing that Todd Marchand overtime goal, like I'll never forget watching that. And
Curtis Joseph was in the fold by then,
yeah,
as you kind of
yeah,
mentioned.
Curtis Joseph, he just like absolutely stood in his head. Like the saves that he was making in those series against Dallas and Colorado those years, it was just absolutely insane. That's why I was saying like it was crappy to see Bill Ranford go out the door, but experiencing that Curtis Joseph era was something really special too.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, that's something that unfortunately Oilers fans had to get used to over the next, let's say,
Mhm.
50. Well, I mean, going back as far as Paul Coffey getting dealt in 87, which was the first major piece of the dynasty to go. And then, of course, Gretzky the following year in 88. And that basically continued all the way up until the salary cap came in. I mean, even Ryan Smith went in '07 after the cap had been in effect for almost 2 years by that point. But yeah, as a fan myself who started watching in the late '90s, it was just something that happened every year that, or every couple of years where you'd see, Doug Waite, then Bill Guerin, then Anson Carter, then uh, Mike Comrie. Just it seemed year after year, Tommy Sallow. My favorite players were always just ushering out the door and going to a new team because the Oilers couldn't afford to pay their next contract. And I mean, that's something that maybe the younger generation of Oilers fans doesn't have an appreciation for because we have three superstars in the league who all make north of $10 million. And that's something that would have seemed unthinkable even 20 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. I still remember, like, I was just holding out hope that day that July 1st when Doug Waite was becoming a free agent. I'm like, "Oh, they'll find a way, they'll find a way." Nope, and just hearing about the Bill Guerin trade and just, it's you get excited about these guys, it feels like the team's finally turning a corner
Yeah.
and they head out the door, so, yeah, I've experienced the pain of the '90s and early 2000s, and, yeah, it's a definitely a hard time to be an Oilers fan, but it gives you appreciation for what we have now.
Yeah, exactly. And let's hope that we're going to finally have some career start to finish Oilers players, beginning with Nugent Hopkins and hopefully ending with the two guys over your shoulder on that picture back there. uh, Especially if those two guys could join him. But what is what was, I should say, your best Oilers game that you ever saw live at Rexall Place and at Rogers Place? Let's start with Rexall Place.
So I was trying to think of a specific game at Rexall Place, but no one specific game really stood out to me. It was more just kind of like moments that I enjoyed.
Okay.
'Cause I saw a lot of games towards the end of Rexall Place's time, and obviously the Oilers were losing the vast majority of them.
They
So
were. And that was most of my time going there because I didn't
yeah,
go to my
yeah.
first Oilers game until 2006. So my entire experience in that building is contained to a 10-year period of 2006 to 2016. So not not the best time other than that first year when they went to the final, but yeah, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, so but the one nice thing about, I guess, seeing all those losses and how tickets were easy to come by, like, I got some great seats that you would normally never be able to afford. I mean,
Yeah.
lower bowl seats, I sat next to, the Oilers bench for one game, and those are normally, like I think they were, like, $500 seats. We got them for, like, 40 bucks, so not great memories of how the game actually went, but getting to experience the games in those kind of seats where normally that would just be a dream of being able to
Yeah.
afford those seats. So those were kind of special. But for actual good memories, there was one game where I can't, like I said, I can't remember the full game start to finish, but it was a comeback win over the San Jose Sharks. Taylor Hall scoring an OT winner really stood out to me. I was at the game where Linus Omark did that spinorama goal
In
in
December
the shootout.
2010. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun to watch that one, to see that one live. You were mentioning Nuge. I was at Nuge's very first game, saw him score his first goal there. So that was really, really special. Those were some of the moments that really stood out to me from Rexall Place. And for biggest memory for Rogers Place, been to a few playoff games, but I got to see the Oilers Game 5 win over LA a couple years ago. I think that was probably the most fun, just to see a playoff victory, see them close out a series like that, get to enjoy the atmosphere inside Rogers Place for a playoff series win. That one was a lot of special. That one was really special, I should say, and yeah, a lot of fun.
So that would have been 2024, I believe, when they wrapped
Ye-
it up in five.
yes, that would be
Yeah,
24. Yeah,
yeah, because they it got better every year. It was 7 games the
yeah,
first time, then six, then five, and then
and
it went back to six again in
six, and yeah,
2025. But they did win four straight in that series after dropping the first two, which is the only time they'd ever done that against the Kings. So in a way, they still got a gentleman's sweep, I guess you could say,
for sure.
after dropping those first two on the road, and it wasn't looking good. Um, and I just want to say before we move on, I want to also get to know a little bit about your own history of your YouTube channel. And congrats, by the way, because I know a couple months ago you reached 10,000 subscribers. So that's awesome, man.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was just an incredible feeling. It was a milestone when I was starting that did not seem like it'd ever be within reach. I remember making my first video and seeing that 20 people had watched it. I was blown away. I couldn't believe anyone would even want to watch, and let alone that 20 people did. And to get to the point where I had 10,000 people subscribing to watch me talk about the Oilers was really, really special. So just want to throw out a huge thank you to everyone who helped me along the way, who supported me along the way. It was an incredible milestone to
Oh,
achieve.
well, man, you make great content, and it's one thing that I always look forward to after every game. I'm a night owl myself, so when you put up the late videos, I'm probably one of the first to watch it. I don't know if I don't know if I'm always the first to click on it, but I'm usually in there as soon as I see it up. So that's awesome, man. And let's just kind of go into it now. When did you start your YouTube channel, and did you have the name The Oilers Fanatic right from the start?
So my very first video was posted on May 29th, 2021. It was a video talking about if we could see Mike Smith and Alex Stalock as the Edmonton Oilers goaltending tandem for the following season. Mike Smith was still there,
Yeah,
but
you got one. You got one out of two.
I think my rationale behind that was how cheap of a tandem that could have been for the Oilers, and
Mhm.
a real good value. And because Alex Stalock had been playing quite well before all that health issues happened there. So, but anyway, that was just kind of like the first idea that came to my mind. I was trying to start with something unique. So that was my very first video on May 29th, 2021. And the Oilers Fanatic was the name right from the very start.
All right. And have you always posted daily videos during the hockey season, or have you increased the amount of content you make over time?
So when I started on May 29th, I was doing it pretty much, I think I did every single day right up until about somewhere in August. I was really trying to get when the momentum of the channel really started to pick up, because I had 1,000 subscribers by the fall there. So I was just wanted to keep that momentum going. So I really felt the pressure. I wanted to, but I mean, it was good pressure. I wanted to keep posting more videos. And obviously, it was a very eventful summer. That was the summer we signed Zach Hyman and
Hmm.
Jack Campbell. And well, we know how that one ended. But at the time, people were excited about it. But yeah, it was a very eventful summer. So there was definitely a lot to talk about. So I was
Duncan
posting,
Keith.
yeah, Duncan Keith, yeah, the Duncan Keith trade. So there was a lot to talk about that summer. So yeah, I was posting quite a bit, but I did kind of slowly scale back, but it's still quite frequent.
And there are days when you post multiple videos, right?
Yeah, and yeah, I should mention as well. Yeah, during that summer, there would be days where I'd post 2 to 3, just like anytime an idea came to my mind, and it was almost I was almost posting too much, because you kind of kill the momentum of the last video by posting a new video, right? Because YouTube starts pushing the next video instead of promoting the last one you did. So it's almost better, unless you have like two really good stories or something like
Yeah.
that, just kind of keep it to one video a day,
No, that makes sense. I mean, it's the
or
best way to
space them
try
out
and
anyway.
maximize your audience for that. Exactly.
Yeah.
And Which of your videos typically generate the most views? Is it wins, losses, trades, signings? I mean, just kind of, have you noticed a trend of which ones tend to do the best?
It's definitely trade speculation videos that do the best, and it's not just because oil country likes trades. I mean, they have the widest appeal across NHL and hockey fandom. Like, even people that aren't fans of the Edmonton Oilers will tune into the channel because they wanna see someone talking about trades and what potential trades we could see. So, trade speculation, rumors, those are definitely the biggest videos.
Is there one recently that you could give an example of that was a big hit for you?
Oh, yeah, most of them here, like, well, we were I
Not
guess
to put
it's
you on
been
the
more
spot,
about,
but I'll,
yeah, no, it's been more about Bruce Cassidy as of late, but I had one that was around 15,000 views, which isn't, like, insane. Well, actually, it's actually up to 16,000, 16.7 thousand
I mean, those
now.
are pretty big numbers, man. And I mean, especially when you say that just 5 years ago you were pretty psyched about 20 people watching. I mean, there must be times when you're blown away thinking like, wow, like 15,000 views on this video. But I mean,
Yeah.
Oilers fans are a passionate bunch, and it doesn't matter how many radio shows, podcasts, TV panels talking about the team. It's like there's never enough content that Oilers fans can consume, and especially if there's a big breaking news story that I think it's going to blow up for sure. And you also make great content, so people are going to keep coming back again and again.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, Eric. But yeah, those are, yeah, definitely the trade speculation, and those are the ones you also kind of get like excited to talk about because there's possibilities of like ways to improve the team, and unfortunately, also when there's kind of bad news, there's those are also the bigger click videos as well. I mean, the month that we were basically talking about Jay Woodcroft losing his job there when the
Yeah,
Oilers did that a few months ago, those were like insanely big videos just with the amount of clicks they were getting. I mean, it's unfortunately, yeah, bad news kind of drives that too and speculation. So it's kind of, you don't like to get the huge views
on
off of
that kind of
those
stuff. Yeah,
for good news, but unfortunately, sometimes bad news actually draws in more people because it expands the interest level from outside the Oilers fan base.
yeah, for sure. And lastly, do you have a favorite video that you've done, and if so, why does it stand out to you?
Well, I'd have to go with my favorite video. My favorite video being my biggest video of all time, which was 64,000 views. It was the video put out, and it's basically thanks to heavy hockey because I was reporting on the posts that Lotzie and Dash were putting out that it was looking like Ken Holland, Jay Woodcroft, and Dave Manson were going to get fired. As we found out, eventually it was only Jay Woodcroft and Dave Manson, but they were putting reports out there. There was one night they did a post on heavy hockey there, and based on other things that heavy hockey had done, I wasn't a part of heavy hockey at that point, but Michael had been putting out some really good information and stuff. So I felt this was important to post on, and it just went viral there and went up to 64,000 views. So I had a big connection to heavy hockey before I was even a part of it.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, it's been awesome to have you a part of the team the past almost 2 years now, I guess it would be. And I just want to say
Yeah.
congrats to you on reaching 10,000 subscribers again. And man, it's not going to be long before you hit 20,000. I'm sure of it.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate that. Yeah, just a couple other videos that kind of stood out to me. I was going to mention as well. A
Yeah.
recent video I just did with my good buddy Tyson, who does the channel Doll and ETV, also
Yeah. He
covering the
was at
Oilers.
the Heavy Hockey Showdown too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
saw him there.
Yeah, he was doing video with me. He's done that for the last 2 years as well. So yeah, we just did a recent video. It hit about 8 or 9 thousand, I believe, now, and we were just doing a rundown on all the Bruce Cassidy stuff and what we thought the Oilers might do this summer, things like that. So that was a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
this past summer, when Russ Jericho was visiting,
Hmm.
did a video interview with Russ and his buddy Jeff there, the Sherwood Park super fan, two
Right.
amazing guys, and that video was a lot of fun to do as well. So just wanted to give those ones a shout out too.
For sure. All right, let's dive into some free agency talk now. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to discuss 11 roster players on the Oilers that need a new contract this offseason, and we'll kick it off tonight with Adam Henrique. Henrique had just 3 goals and 15 points in 65 games last season. And Patrick, we've seen his offensive numbers steadily decline since the Oilers acquired him at the trade deadline in 2024. However, he's still a solid penalty killer and good on faceoffs. But at 36 years old, do you think that's reason enough to bring him back for another season in oil country?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, I don't think he's an everyday player for the Edmonton Oilers right now. If you were to bring him back, it would have to be something definitely at most a million, ideally under a million, something similar to maybe I wouldn't go 2 years, but something similar to the Derek Ryan contract that was around 900,000, where if you had to send him to Bakersfield, you could. I wouldn't be totally against bringing him back, but it might be better, despite, like you said, his great penalty killing. And I think he's a valued member of the team, but the Oilers do really have to find ways to increase what the bottom six is giving this team. And re-signing another aging veteran might not be the best way to go about it. Maybe if he's not an everyday player, the 13th or 14th forward, under $1 million, something like that, I would consider.
Yeah, and I want to give Henrique some credit too because he scored
Mhm.
some big playoff goals for the Oilers in the 2024 and 25 playoff runs. And he was also the first player to ever play his 1000th career game in an Oilers jersey this past November, which is a cool piece of trivia. And I mean, Edmonton's penalty kill really struggled when he was out of the lineup for 17 games last season with an injury. But I don't think he has enough offense left in his game to even be a fourth line center next season. And age aside, one of the biggest reasons that he hasn't scored as much since leaving the Ducks in 2024 was because he isn't getting the same minutes and opportunity that he had in Anaheim. And, while it's great that he can still be a solid defensive center at this stage of his career, I think the Oilers would be better suited to give that spot to a younger player with a little more offensive punch.
Yeah, exactly. I'm fine bringing him back, but like I said, I wouldn't want him to be an everyday player anymore. I just think he's just not at that point in his career anymore where he can come in and have a solid contribution. He has been an impact player for the Edmonton Oilers, like you said, on the penalty kill, and he has scored some big goals. I'm certainly not upset that he's been an Edmonton Oiler. I've really enjoyed having him here on the team, but there is a point where you have to kind of take that next step,
Yeah,
and you, I think you need to give the spot to a guy that does more than one thing really well.
for sure. And I mean, like I kind of talked about, when he came to the team just over 2 years ago, that was the big free agent ad ahead of the 2024 playoff run. And
Yeah.
he contributed. He wasn't maybe as big of a contributor offensively as they had hoped, but he did step up in some big moments. I think back to that goal he scored against Dallas in the conference final that sort of helped them get back in. I want to say it was game 4 that they ultimately ended up winning, but it was a tough road for him this past season, and we're starting to see that you know maybe the player that he was 5 years ago, he's not at that level anymore. And so unless he was willing to come back at league minimum and be the 13th forward, I just don't see a spot for Henrique on the team next season. All right, and the next player we're going to talk about ended up taking Henrique's old job as the third line center down the stretch drive this year, and that's Jason Dickinson. Dickinson had 1 goal and 4 points in 17 games with the Oilers last season. However, he did score 2 big goals in the Oilers' Game 1 victory over the Ducks in their opening round series, probably one of the highlights of his career. He was also playing hurt in the playoffs after blocking a shot in a regular season game against the San Jose Sharks in early April, which caused him to miss almost 2 weeks of action. And then he did come back for Game 1 before missing a couple more in that series. Patrick, do you think that Dickinson showed enough in a small sample size for the Oilers to bring him back? And if they wanted to, uh, you know, could a thin free agent class ultimately price him out of what the Oilers are even willing to spend?
Yeah, I think you just have to be really careful with how much money you give him. Maybe if it was like a short deal, 1 or 2 years, and you gave him a bit more, I think we could maybe live with that. It isn't like a very deep free agent class, like you said. So if he's going to want a ton of money, I think the Oilers are better served utilizing that money elsewhere. We heard Bob Stauffer talking about maybe adding a top six forward, something like that. So they're only going to have so much money to go around. You don't want to be paying a third line center huge big bucks. And Jason Dickinson came in, and I thought he played well. Wasn't perfect, but when you're coming in that late in the season and you have to get acclimated to the team and stuff, I think Jason Dickinson did a very good job and obviously scored some big playoff goals for this team. Unfortunately, got hurt, but I'd consider bringing him back, but it has to be at the right price point.
Yeah, and similar to Henrique, Dickinson isn't going to put up a lot of points, but he's 5 years younger than Henrique. He still has good foot speed. He can kill penalties just as well, if not better than him. So I would be interested in bringing back Dickinson. However, like you were sort of mentioning, I don't think the Oilers can afford to spend five of their $16 million this summer on a third line center, especially when you could just elevate a young player like Josh Szymanski, who's already signed for less than $1 million to kind of fill that spot. Or if the coaching staff doesn't think that Szymanski's ready with just 24 games of NHL experience, it would probably be smarter to drop Ryan Nugent Hopkins down to 3C and use that money to that they would have given to Dickinson to sign a top six winger to play with Leon Draisaitl, because that is really what this team needs. And if you tell people the Oilers need more scoring, they'd say, well, they're one of the top offensive teams in the league. Why do they need more scoring? I mean, you can never have enough of it. And with a lot of that offense coming from the big guns, you'd love it if you could have one or two more guys that you could count on for 20 to 25 goals that aren't going to be regulars on the power play or even have to play those like prime first line minutes. Just some guys deeper in the lineup who know are going to give you that type of offense. And yeah, I think they've been searching for a top six winger for a couple of years now. And you're never going to replace Zach Hyman. I mean, that or even replicate him, I guess I should say, because he's still on the team. But that's a pie in the sky of thinking that you're going to find another one. That's like a once in a generation type find. Some people have called him even the best free agent signing in Oilers history. I think maybe the only other one who you could put in the same category as him would be Charlie Huddy. Two completely different players, different eras, but equally important to their team at that time. And I mean, for Zach Hyman, that's exactly the type of player that the Oilers need to find. Someone who comes in at a value deal, which at the time didn't look like it. That some people thought it was an overpay to give Zach Hyman 5.5 million back in 2021, but he's easily exceeded expectations and overproduced on that contract. But just getting back to it, you look. Matt Savoy performed well enough with Connor McDavid after the Olympic break that you probably could drop Nugent Hopkins down to the third line center spot. And I would feel good about that going into next season with a top line of McDavid, Savoy, and Hyman on the first line. So it does open the door for Nuge to finally settle into that sort of center spot, which he played for the majority of his career. And maybe they can now use that extra money to find another player with more offensive ability to slide in next to Draisaitl and Vasily Podkolzin.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was going to mention too. Is just putting Nuge down in that third line center role. Eventually, you got to move somebody out of that top six to give other guys opportunities.
And it's
Like if
probably got to be Nuge at
yeah,
this point.
yeah, yeah, Nuge makes the most sense. He's the vet there. If they're going to make room for a guy like Ike Howard to have more time there in the top six, and I think that's where, if not in the top six, at least the top nine, that's where a guy like him needs to be to have some kind of success. So it just makes sense to move Nuge or somebody else down there. So that could save you money. I mean, you've got Nuge at what 5.125 million,
Yeah.
and he's someone that you can, if needed, move up into the top six again. Where it's not, you can't really say that about a guy like Jason Dickinson. So you already have a more versatile option in Ryan Nugent Hopkins.
And
So
he's going to get softer matchups than he's used to, too, which is going to benefit him
yeah,
at 33 and going into the final couple of years of this contract. Now, if he's going up against, say, you're the third pairing D on other teams more often than their top pairing when you're playing with Connor McDavid, that could potentially open up more offense too. And if you do want these wingers that you're eventually going to bring in to play on the third line, giving them a skilled center with like Nugent Hopkins, who also has a defensive conscience, that seems like the smart play from my perspective. And then the one thing that we've noticed the last couple of years in free agency is the Oilers keep going for these small pieces around the edges. You bring in a guy like uh, last season. Well, the name's escaping me. Who they just traded to Chicago.
Mangiapane.
Andrew Mangiapane. Instead of going after guys like that, or even a Trent Frederick, guys who are coming in at just under $4 million, and you're kind of expecting them to sort of be this support piece. Just go get the one big piece you really need to play next to a Leon Draisaitl or a Connor McDavid. And if we are going to keep that top line together, I do like what Vasily Podkolzin does. He showed a lot more offensive ability this season than he did previous year. But I mean, even aside from his goal scoring picking up, he's great at digging pucks out and doing a lot of the dirty work for Leon. But I'd love to get a real sniper with Leon too on the other side. And I don't think that's something that he's had other than when he's like playing with McDavid, of course. But to have an all-world passer like Draisaitl, have I mean, if you brought in a guy who could score 25 goals when he's not playing with Leon, imagine what he could do when he has Draisaitl as a center. So that's kind of what I'm focused on more than say bringing in another player who might be able to fill in and you're not sure if he's going to like stick on the second or third line. Just go get that big piece that you're really looking for.
Yeah, I think it was Louis DeBrusk who was saying today on Oilers Now that it's almost inexcusable to not have someone playing on Draisaitl's wing that doesn't score at least 30 goals.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen guys like Kapanen and Pods and stuff, and Pods obviously had a breakthrough year this year, but even still, like, there's really no excuse someone should not be someone that doesn't score at least 25 to 30 goals playing
And
with a
they've
player
tried.
like,
They've brought in
yeah,
guys, but it hasn't been the right fits. So
yeah.
I mean that instead of maybe focusing on, the center position, the Oilers are loaded with centers as it is. Instead of, and
Mhm.
and look, Nuge got shifted to the wing years ago, and he's had varying results with McDavid over time. Some seasons have been better than others. The even strength scoring is down, but Nuge has always been a player who's performed really well on the power play. So if he's going to stay there on the power play for maybe another year before, let's say, Matt Savoy takes that spot, you still need to come in and replace that even strength offense. And I don't know, if, like I just want them to just go hit a home run. And you know, this would be like we'll do another whole episode eventually on what the Oilers end up doing in their free agency. But if they could get Jason Robertson, now that is, asking an American player to come to Canada, and also with how much money he's going to command on the open market. But that's what I'm more thinking of is like going after a winger, a high end winger, than trying to look for the center position. And that's when I kind of first mentioned about Dickinson, I said it might be a thin class, especially with Malkin now re-signing. Dickinson might end up being one of the top free agent centers on the market. So that could make it difficult for Edmonton to bring him back.
Well, another thing with Dickinson too, if he is commanding somewhere like 5 million or more, the Oilers could go with Nuge most of the season, and if they feel like they're missing something that Nuge isn't providing as the third line center, then pick up a Jason Dickinson type at
Yeah.
the trade deadline, where you can do it where maybe there's some retention or you get some like at a much smaller price than 5 million bucks anyway. So yeah, I think that could be a solution as well instead of giving Jason Dickinson $5 million on a multi-year deal.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, I would bring back Dickinson, but I just can't agree to signing him to a 5 by 5 deal. Like it would have to be something that's a lot more easy to stomach than that. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think the Oilers are going to be able to get him at that price. So
No.
I think the price that I would be comfortable giving him and that the Oilers themselves would be comfortable giving him isn't going to be an option for them. All right, next up is Jack Roslovic, and he reportedly turned down a 4-year contract with the Oilers last summer before inking a 1-year deal worth 1.5 million during their home opener. And that turned out to be a value contract for the Oilers as he tallied 21 goals and 36 points in 69 games last season. And it's pretty impressive that he was able to score at a 25 goal pace with little power play time, other than when Draisaitl and Hyman were out of the lineup. However, he disappeared in the playoffs, registering no goals in 6 games. Patrick, there's no doubt that Roslovic added some secondary scoring to this team, but did you see enough from him to be confident in the Oilers re-signing him to a potentially 4 or 5 year deal?
No, I would let Jack Roslovic go to the free agent market. I think it was a 1 year deal that worked out well for both sides. He got himself into a position where he should get, a fairly decent contract this summer. And the Oilers, like you said, got a value deal out of it. He scored very well for being a $1.5 million player. So I think it was just one of those 1 year deals that worked out fairly well for both sides. He was inconsistent, and yeah, he didn't. And I think with the changes and additions the Oilers want to make, I don't think that's money that they can afford to spend on someone like Jack Roslovic. And I think probably come August, September, you can find a similar player that hasn't been able to find a contract if you're kind of looking for a value deal. So I would let Jack Roslovic walk and
Yeah.
thank him for his efforts. Thank him for being an Edmonton Oiler. I think I didn't have anything against him personally. I thought it worked out well for both
Yeah, so
sides.
did I.
I think it's just a 1 year deal that worked out. And thank you very much. And on your way.
Yeah, I mean, look, it might seem counterproductive for us to be talking about letting Roslovic walk in free agency and then immediately go looking for another 20-goal scorer to play with Draisaitl. But I think that Bowman is likely looking for a player who isn't as one-dimensional as Roslovic. I mean, he has slick hands and a quick release, but he rarely gets involved in physical play and he tends to cheat for offense. And sometimes it works out. Like he's known to blow the zone early. I mean, I think back to a breakaway pass that he took from Connor McDavid back in the game that Dickinson actually got hurt uh, in San Jose. That was the point that won McDavid outright the scoring title this year with his 131st point. But when Roslovic would do that, sometimes it would work and you'd get those plays. And other times he's out of position and he's leaving his team short-handed for a second as the puck gets turned over, or he tries to do more too much with the puck coming through the zone and turns it over. So, yeah, I mean, given what the Oilers are looking for in a second line winger, I'm not sure that his finishing ability is enough to earn him a multi-year deal. So this, like you said, this might end up being just a 1 year partnership that worked out for both sides, where Roslovic boosted his stock around the league and the Oilers got a 20-goal season out of him. But I don't see him coming back either.
No, I think, yeah, like you said, each side got what they wanted out of the deal, I think, and I'm sure Roslovic would be open to coming back. I think he enjoyed his time as an Edmonton Oiler, but I think the Oilers just simply have to aim higher at this point. There's too much at stake.
Yeah. All right. The next player on the list is Kasperi Kapanen. It was an injury-plagued season for Kapanen, who had 8 goals and 17 points in 41 games, but he stepped up in a big way in the playoffs, leading the team with 4 goals in 6 games. Patrick, although Kapanen was red hot against the Ducks this spring, he's only scored 13 goals in 98 regular season games with the Oilers over the past 2 seasons. Do you think Edmonton should re-sign Kapanen? And if so, where do you see him fitting into this lineup?
I would try to re-sign Kapanen, but similar to Dickinson, you just have to be careful about how much you're spending. He has to kind of give the Edmonton Oilers a deal, and I think Kapanen actually would do that just because he knows how good the fit is here. He saw his stock fall when he was with the St. Louis Blues, Pittsburgh Penguins, so I think he knows how good he has it here in Edmonton and how well he's fit into that locker room, and I think he's a very valuable part of the Edmonton Oilers. So, as long as they can keep the price point within something that's reasonable, I think you can keep him in this lineup. And he is one of those versatile guys where you can still notice him whether he's in the top six or the bottom six. I think he does a lot of things well for this team. So, basically, as long as you keep the price point reasonable, I would definitely be open to doing Kasperi on a 2 or 3 year deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to bring Kapanen back more than any of the pending free agents we've talked about so far. I mean, he's a player that the Oilers picked up off waivers for nothing, and he scored some clutch playoff goals for the Oilers in each of the past 2 springs. Well, I think this generation of Oilers fans will never forget the series-winning goal he scored in overtime against Vegas last
Yeah.
year, which is even bigger than any of the playoff goals he scored this year. Though he was, like I said, on a tear in that first round against the Ducks, but I'm not confident he can stay healthy enough or produce consistently enough to hold on to a spot in the top six. And if we've spent all this time already talking about the Oilers either having to trade for a winger or acquire one through free agency to play with Draisaitl, giving Kappen in that spot again, it's just it goes against what we're talking about of trying to bring in that guy who should be an automatic 30-goal scorer playing with a player like Leon Draisaitl. So if the Oilers re-sign him, it would likely be as a third line forward who can jump up into the top six on occasion. Say if there's an injury or if the coach just needs to shake up the lines because they're in a slump. But I don't see him playing in the top six on a consistent basis, despite how good he looked for a week and a half this spring. And his cap hit was 1.3 million last season. I would like to keep it that number, I should say, under 2 million on a 3-year deal because the last thing the Oilers need is another overpaid depth forward. And yes, the salary cap is going up $9 million again next season, and we'll need to rethink what a third line forward will cost. But the Oilers absolutely need to spend their money wisely this summer. So I'll say yes to Kapanen, but not until they get their more important business finished first. Like if they are going to go and sign or trade for a goalie, or if they're going to bring in a winger to play in one of the top two lines, that should be what they focus on first before they think about extending an offer to Kasperi Kapanen, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's one of those guys, yeah, you gotta get the big fish signed first, and then you give him what's left, and like I said, if he wants to stay in Edmonton Oiler, and I think he does, and I think he knows how great this fit is and for him, I think he has to give the Oilers a value
Yeah.
deal and recognize the position that he's in. If he wants to chase the money, it's not gonna be here. You can go somewhere else and try and make 3 or 4 million bucks, but I think he knows unless he gets really lucky, it's not going to be as good of a fit as it has been with Edmonton. So I think he has to recognize that. I think ultimately he will, but like you said, he can't be the top priority. But I would try and bring him back if we can figure out the right price
Yeah.
point.
And if he does come back, I think that extension will likely be signed, probably in the next month or so, because if it gets to July 1st and they haven't re signed, that tells me that Bowman is either relayed the message that we're looking at some other things first and we'll call you back? Or has he said, this is the number that I need? And Bowman said, well, I'm not going to be able to match that. So it's going to be interesting. He might also just look around the league and doesn't find a better deal or a better situation and circles back and comes to the Oilers. But I think they want to leave as much cap space available as they can going into July 1st. And if you tie yourself up with $2 million or two and a half or whatever it might be for Kapanen, then you're dropping that number maybe from 16 down to 13 and a half. And I don't want that number to dwindle too much, especially until they know exactly what their objective is and what they're going to try and get done in those first couple days, because that's when you're going to be looking to really get the player you need when every team is doing their major business.
Yeah, I mean, the timing could be a bit off because obviously it's not a great free agent market. So
Yeah,
the big player
exactly.
that the Edmonton Oilers do bring in is likely going to probably be via trade. It's
Yeah,
actually probably not going to be on July 1st. So we may see him signed, yeah, like in some point in June, like you said. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds. But I hope when it's all said and done, that Kapanen is still an Oiler because I do enjoy having him here in Edmonton.
for sure. Okay, next up is Colton Dock. He had 5 goals and 13 points in 61 games last season, including 4 points in 8 games with the Oilers. And as a 23-year-old with size, toughness, and flashes of skill, it's a virtual lock that he'll ink a new deal with the Oilers this summer. And although he wasn't the key piece in the trade with the Chicago Blackhawks back in March, do you think that Doc could end up being a surprisingly valuable player for the Oilers going forward?
I do, because I think he just brings a lot of the, attributes that a lot of the other Oilers players don't have, right? That toughness, some skill to go along with it. I think he's comfortable in the bottom 6, and that's really where the Oilers need some toughness and skill added. I mean, ideally, you can bring in a top 6 guy that can do that as well, but having a younger guy like Colton Dock, local guy, love it for the fans, and you just love seeing those guys work out here in Edmonton. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out as we know with a few other guys, poor stew and all that stuff. So it'd be great to see Colton Dock be a success story here, and I think he'd be a really valuable part of the Oilers' bottom six here for the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, Dickinson was obviously the key piece in that trade with the Blackhawks ahead of the deadline, but I think Doc brings some elements to the Oilers forward group that they badly needed. As I mentioned before, he's big, he's 6'4", he plays a physical game, he's still young, and he's only played 86 games in the NHL. And while I don't think that he's ever going to put up a lot of points, I could see him scoring 10 to 15 goals with a little more experience at the highest level. He does score the odd goal and make make a nice play now and then that show you why he was a former second round pick in the draft. But I think his bread and butter is going to be as a physical presence who can get under an opponent's skin, drop the gloves from time to time, and bang in some rebounds in front of the net. And I suspect he'll get a bit of a raise on the 825,000 he earned on his entry level deal, but I still think that number will come in under $1 million. So maybe somewhere around the $950,000 range on a 2-year bridge deal.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. And yeah, I mean, 10 to 15 goals probably isn't out of reach here for him because the younger players that the Oilers are going to look to bring into the bottom six, they're going to have some offensive talent. And if he gets hot with somebody, I mean, 10 to 15 could easily be within reach if they
Yeah.
can get those
I mean,
bottom six.
hopefully closer to
Yeah.
15.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd like to think that he's going to hit the upper level of that range, but I mean, especially if you look at some of the other younger guys, like Matt Savoy's already on the team and playing on the top line. At least he was down the stretch. uh, Ike Howard is going to be on the team next season and hopefully taking on a bigger role. It's still unknown how much of an impact a player like Quinn Hudson is going to be at the NHL level. He might end up just being a tweener. But one thing that these three players have in common is that they're all on the smaller side. And if you're going to bring in that many young players who all don't have a lot of size, getting a guy like Doc in there who is such a physical presence, that's a different player from the rest of the group. And it might even make it another reason why someone like Connor Clattenburg eventually gets a spot on this team. Because if you have one player type throughout all of your players that are pushing their way onto the roster, you just sort of get over oversaturated with the exact same type of player. And I don't know if that's conducive to winning in the playoffs, especially when a lot of them aren't on, the more physical side. I mean, Matt Savoy is small and he'll get engaged, but uh, at this stage of his career, I mean, he's still going to get pushed off the puck by some bigger guys. That's just the reality. I mean, he's not going to get any bigger than he is. So getting a guy like Colton Dock in there who can sort of bang bodies and isn't afraid of that rough stuff, actually appears to like doing it. I mean, that could be a benefit for the Oilers.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, team toughness is something that has to be improved upon, and I think we saw flashes of it from Trent Frederick, and obviously he's going to have more of a bounce back season. But bringing in another guy like Colton Dog just to add to the toughness of this team, and maybe can rub off on some other guys too. I think it would just be a fantastic addition. And when Connor Clattenburg can be a full time member of this team, he's
Mhm.
going to help in that department as well.
Do you envision those two guys starting the season on the fourth line next year, Doc and Frederick?
I think they're going to try and get Frederick higher than that because I think that
They
was
want to give
part
him
of
the opportunity to bounce back.
yeah, and I think that was part of the issue with Chris Knobloch that management had was his use of Trent Frederick. So I think they're going to try and have him be more than just a fourth line player. I mean,
It's going to
like
have
you,
to be the third line, though. I mean,
yeah, it's not going
because
to be top six. Yeah,
no. Is it fair to say that Vasily Podkolzin has secured a spot in the top six, at least for now?
I think so. Like we've seen him, he had a breakout year scoring wise. He just is that natural fit with Leon Draisaitl. Leon loves playing with him, so I think you're just trying to find the like. And I think it was like I said, Louis DeBrus that was mentioning earlier. Kasperi Kapanen and Vasily Podkolzin have just been those greatest fits I think we've had with Leon Draisaitl. So basically, I think Pods is the lock there. You're looking for the upgrade on Kasperi Kapanen right
Right.
now.
So if we're saying that 5 of the 6 spots in the top 6 are already secured, then, And you want to give Frederick that opportunity to play on the third line. And if they bring back Kapanen, who's also going to be on the third line on the other wing, and you're going to have Nugent Hopkins move down to the third wing, then really there's only one spot available in your top nine right now. And that is that second line, I guess, right winger next to Draisaitl. So that's the spot they're trying to fill. And I mean, Doc could be just that good fit on the fourth line, and you look at maybe Szymanski's the center there, who and then figure out who plays on the other wing from there. But the shopping list might actually not be as long as it seems for this team, even though there are holes to fill. But it's just that there's some major ones that they want to take care of more than just like a million little things they need to do.
And they also don't have to fill all the holes right now, right? I
No,
mean,
you
we
need
always
your
talk
team to
about
be good enough
yeah,
to get you to
yeah,
March.
yeah, and then you make the final tweaks there at the trade deadline. Like I was saying, you could find your next Jason Dickinson at the trade deadline, and Kapanen, I don't think has to play on the third line either. I think Kasperi Kapanen could move down to the fourth line and still be effective for you. That's kind of what I like about him is no matter where you put him in the lineup, I think he does still have some effect. Obviously, more effect in other spots, but he's one of those versatile players that you do have. So if you have to move him down, I think that's someone you can move down as well. But that's also another reason why you have to be careful how much you're paying him.
Right. Okay, let's move on now to Curtis Lazar. He had 4 goals and 6 points in 45 games last season. And I think he understands his role as a depth forward who's going to play around half the games. Patrick, Lazar signed a 1 year deal for league minimum a year ago. Would you just offer him the same deal again this summer, or should the Oilers walk away and maybe consider giving that spot to someone that we've already talked about, like a Szymanski, or possibly even bringing up someone else from the roster to maybe fill in as the guy who slots in as the fourth line center, or even the 13th forward as one of the Black Aces?
Yeah, with Lazar, I'd rather have Szymanski full time as the fourth line center, let's say, over Lazar. So yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys you could go past July 1st if he's still looking for a contract. You could offer him league minimum again. He's a guy I wouldn't offer a raise to. I mean, he was fine. I didn't have anything against him. I thought he was a decent fit. And
There were times he
but,
played some
yeah,
pretty good games, I think.
yeah. Oh yeah, no, like he was. Yeah, it was a decent fit. But I think he's also a player you can easily upgrade on.
Yeah.
So yeah, if he was fine coming in again, like you said, at league minimum, spending some time in Bakersfield if need be. If he's fine with that, sure, why not?
Telling him you're not going to play that much, maybe even less than the 45 games you played this past season.
Yeah. No,
But
as long as he's yeah. Yeah.
if he's looking for an opportunity to play though, then he's probably going to go somewhere else. And it's not going to be a major loss if the Oilers let him go. But I mean, it's also not a big home run to bring him back either. I'm sort of, you know, I'm fine with whichever way it goes, basically. I mean, if he wants to come back, great. If he doesn't, it's not a big deal either.
Yeah, no, I'm in the exact same boat with you. Like I
This
said,
isn't going to be a player
yeah.
who makes or breaks the Oilers season. So,
No, he's a good fit, but also replaceable. So
yeah. All right, and another player in a similar spot to Lazar is Max Jones. He spent most of last season in Bakersfield, but he filled in with the Oilers as an injury placement and had 3 goals and 5 points in 21 games. Patrick, would you have any interest in signing Jones to another contract?
I would, but again, similar to Lazar, he'd have to be willing to go back and forth between Edmonton and Bakersfield because he found some spots staying in the lineup with the Edmonton Oilers and he looked really good at those times, but I think he's going to be struggling despite that late season success that he had to be a full-time player in this lineup. So as long as he's fine being the extra forward or spending some time in Bakersfield, I'm more than willing to have him back here at less than $1 million, but it has to be at that price point and with that understanding.
Yeah, I like I said. I mean, this is a guy who is more of a AHL player than an NHL player at this point, and uh, if he wants to come back and sort of play that role again, where the Oilers will say, "Hey, look, we'll call you up when we need you," or if we have the money and you can afford, if we can afford to fill you in as sitting in the press box, then we'll do that too. But I don't see him as someone who is really going to move the needle for this team. when he does get in the lineup, there's obviously a lot of energy that comes with that player. I mean, we've seen it the past 2 years when the rare times when he does get in, that he looks genuinely excited to be there and plays with a ton of pace and is almost like playing like he doesn't know if this is ever gonna if he's ever gonna get back to the show again. So I do appreciate that from him, but it's also basically every other player we've talked about so far. I would rather have those as the Oilers' top 12 forwards than a guy like Lazar or Max Jones.
Yeah, I really like Max Jones, obviously a former London
Yeah,
Knight,
I
and
guess the connection there too.
I have my connection with the London Knights there. So, I mean, yeah, I liked Max Jones. Nothing against him. I thought he looked great at moments, and he's certainly a fun guy to have around the team. But I think we just can't get too attached to some guys and just want them in there just because we like them. I mean, I remember the days when the Edmonton Oilers were bad and we get attached to certain guys. It's like, oh, we can't get rid of this guy. I mean, he looks so good. And then if you take your Oilers colored glasses off, I mean, some of these guys that we really, really liked, they were no more than a third or a fourth line player. And we thought they were great players and they were playing in our top six. So
Yeah.
we just have to look at it, take your Oiler colored glasses off and just look at him as a player that what he does and where he realistically fits. So love to have him around, but right price point, right understanding are very key.
And when we think that this team is constantly looking over in Europe or through the college ranks to find these next players to come in and fill those spots in Bakersfield and possibly have a chance to work the way up to the roster. Eventually, you're going to have to clear space for. I mean, they signed Owen Michaels this past spring. They signed Quinn Hudson the year before. I'm not saying that those guys are ever going to be full-time players for the Oilers, but if the road is blocked because, you've got these veteran tweeners who are sort of in their way. I mean, I would make it very clear to Max Jones if you brought him back that, you are going to be in Bakersfield most of the time. And it's probably going to take multiple injuries, which is what happened this season for him to get brought up. And we are still going to prioritize our young prospects down on the farm, even when you're there. And maybe that's something that he's on board with, or maybe he'll decide that he wants to go to an opportunity where he's going to get more playing time, whether that be at the NHL or minor league level.
Yeah. Well, he's one of those players too, like along with Curtis Lazar, where no matter where he goes, he's probably not playing above a fourth line. So if he wants more of a chance at a Stanley Cup, it might be better just to suck it up and be with Edmonton. But if he wants more playing time, maybe a little bit more money, probably better to go elsewhere.
All right, we'll move on to the defenseman now. And at the top of the priority list for this position, and arguably all of the Oilers' pending free agents, is Connor Murphy. He had 1 goal and 4 points in 20 games with the Oilers last season. And at age 33, Murphy played in the playoffs for just the second time in his career and the first time with fans in the building. I think he was the exact type of defender that this team needed, and he proved to be an excellent fit with Darnell Nurse on the second pairing. Patrick, do you agree that Murphy is Edmonton's most important UFA to re sign this offseason? And what was your assessment of his play in the final quarter of the season?
100% he's the top UFA that this team has to get signed. If they let Connor Murphy walk, all they're doing is trying to replace Connor Murphy with a similar player. So, well, if you've already got him here, find a way to get it done. I was really impressed with him since coming over. Like you said, he was a great fit with Darnell Nurse there. We'll see if Darnell Nurse is still an Edmonton Oiler next year. That's a whole other topic. But should Nurse still be here, we know Connor Murphy is a great fit with him. So even Nurse aside, he's a great second pairing defenseman. I think you can get him on probably a pretty good deal. And like you said, he's only been in the playoffs a couple times. So despite being 33, there's not as much tread used up on those tires. I think he can still give you some solid years. So I would definitely want to get Connor Murphy back here.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the exact same thinking as you. And Murphy just wrapped up a 4-year contract with a cap hit of 4.4 million that was interestingly also signed by Bowman when they were both still with the Blackhawks. And I'm sure there are some teams out there that would give him that same amount or maybe even $5 million on a 3-year deal. But I'm hoping that Bowman can sell him on taking a bit less to play for a Stanley Cup contender. And, he's a 13-year veteran who's made more than 39 million in his career, but he's only played in the playoffs twice. And I would think having the chance to win would be more valuable to him than squeezing an extra million or two out of another team. So I'd offer him 3.75 million on a 3-year deal. I think that he still, like you said, has 2 or 3 years of really good hockey left in him, especially because he hasn't been on those long runs every summer. And I'm excited to see what a full season of Murphy looks like on the blue line in Edmonton.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you can get him on some kind of value deal, and then like that's kind of where we have to find ourselves. Like I was mentioning earlier with Kasperi Kapanen, these guys have to realize the opportunity that they have here. If you want to chase the money, a Stanley Cup contender is not where you chase the money. That's where you find the right amount of money you can live with, and you take a little less for the opportunity that's in front of you. And I think he understands that. I think he was a great fit here. And similar to Kasperi Kapanen, I think we can get him on a good deal.
And I know there is this mentality out there that because Connor McDavid took less, everyone else on the team should take less too. And I don't know if that entirely is accurate. I think it's more situational because, I mean, yes, McDavid probably left 7 or 8 million dollars on the table of what I mean, he's a $20 million player realistically, and
For sure.
he's playing for 12 and a half, which makes him undoubtedly the best value contract in the NHL. To have a player who's pushing for 140 points this year and playing at that type of pay scale. Now, there are other guys who haven't made their money yet. And that's why, it's going to be harder to convince them to take a little bit less to play for a team, especially for Edmonton, which you'd hope would have become more of a desirable market just because of what this team has been able to accomplish over the last few playoffs. But, still, it seems like the Oilers have to overpay a little bit in free agency every year. And for a guy like Murphy, this is where I say it comes in as being situational because, like I said, he's made almost $40 million in his career. And when you've played in the league for 13 years and you've only seen the playoffs twice, having a chance to go and win the Stanley Cup has to be intriguing to him. So, I mean, if he wants to go get a $5 million deal from another team on a 3 or 4 year pact, go for it. But the Oilers have spent the assets on him already. I'd love for them to try and keep him in the fold if possible. But yeah, I think keeping that number under 4 million is crucial to them.
Yeah, I don't. I, I'd like it to be under 4. I don't know if they'll quite be able to do that, but it's got to be at most 4 something. I think for the Oilers, just with how tight they are to the cap. So if they can get it under 4, like to the number you're saying, that'd be fantastic. I'd be really psyched about that. But even if it's 4 something, I think that's reasonable for a
It's
second pairing
reasonable. I mean,
defenseman.
I would
Yeah,
just, like I
yeah.
said, I hope that Bowman really tries to sell him on the idea of, you know, giving us as much wiggle room as we can to upgrade this team. And when was the last time Connor Murphy went into a season on a team that had Stanley Cup aspirations? Never in Arizona. I guess by the time he got there in Chicago, that was after they had lost in the playoffs in 2017. So never in his time with the Blackhawks were they even considered like a playoff threat. The year that he made the playoffs and they beat the Oilers in the 2020 bubble, they only got in because of the expanded playoff picture. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this was the first time he played on a team that genuinely made the playoffs. So that's what I would try to be pushing on him is just saying, look, man, we want you on this team. We think you're a great fit, not just for Nurse, but you play the type of hockey that we need. We've been missing a defenseman like you, but we're our, we don't have a ton of money to spend. So if you can do us a little bit of a deal here, especially because you're just making 4.4, like would you be fine if he signs the exact same deal? How about that?
I could live with that, but ideally a little bit cheaper because you are getting an older player, and the Oilers just have to be really careful. I mean, Connor, as you talked about, is on a value deal. best value deal in the NHL right now. So the Oilers have to spend the money that they're saving there smartly. They didn't do that last year, so that's one of those things going into the being a very important year for Connor McDavid with 2 years left on his deal. So they just have to be very careful. They got to be penny pinching. So if you can get Connor Murphy below that number, ideal.
Right, because I
Yeah,
mean that's 16 million. I think it's going to go fast.
yeah, it will.
If you let's just even call it 4 million even. You give 4 to Murphy. Okay, now you have 12 left. We talked about Kapanen. Let's optimistically say 2. Okay, so now you're down to 10. And you've still got to get a goalie and you've still got to get a winger for Draisaitl. I mean, when you there aren't that many key holes to fill, but at the same time, you have to leave yourself enough wiggle room to get that done. And I don't know if 10 million is enough to get the players they want, unless, like you said, they move out a big contract like Nurse. And I mean, like I said, we could do a whole nother podcast on that. But
Mhm.
that's really if they don't do that, if Nurse just outright refuses to waive and they have to wait until next summer to until he submits his 10 team no trade and then they move him after that, then the Oilers are going to have limited cap space to get some things done this summer. So that's why I'm saying if you can get that number under 4, like every little bit counts. And if we go back even talking about Lazar and talking about Max Jones earlier, even giving those guys, if you give them 775,000 each, I mean that right there, like that takes 1.5 million away from what you have to spend. So all those guys, I think down the road, you say we're handling some really important things first, and we'll touch base with you after we get that done. So Murphy would be pretty much near the top of the list for anything that we have to talk about, in the here and now, because they can't even worry about free agents until July 1st, although we both kind of agree that the trade route is probably where they're going to be going to make the major upgrades, whether it be in goal or on the wing. But for Murphy, that's some business they could take care of easily ahead of June for or July 1st if they wanted to.
Yeah, and well, just going back to Nurse there for a sec, if the Oilers do
Yeah.
move on from Nurse,
Well, then
it's
now
not like
you've
that.
got a ton of space. So you're looking at more like 27 or 25 million, I should say.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, like, even if you move out Nurse, you're probably taking a big contract back. Like, I don't think any team is taking the full Nurse contract off you, and then you just suddenly have $9 million available. Like, the big rumor deal is possibly like Darnell Nurse for Morgan Riley.
That one is out
And
there too.
yeah,
I think the smarter play is to look at a team that has a ton of cap space like San Jose or Columbus.
mhm,
Isn't Columbus, they need to spend 14 million just to reach the cap floor?
yeah.
And I look at that and say, okay, maybe you don't get a big return, but I think the Darnell Nurse might still have more value on the open market than some people think. This is a guy who's rarely hurt. He's a guy who can play a ton of minutes. He skates excellent for he can fly like the wind. And for a defenseman in the league, one of the best skaters. Sure, he has his defensive warts, and there are times when you wonder like what he's doing out there in front of the net, but I'm just saying this is a guy who I think the Oilers can get more for than some people think. And trying to capitalize on one of those teams that needs to reach the cap floor is the way to go. You talk to San Jose, former Oiler Mike Greer running the ship down there. Could
Mhm.
Darnell Nurse be a veteran defenseman to come in and help that young group come along with Macklin Celebrini, especially when you have all the cap space in the world? We're not expecting you to give us something substantial back, but you could still get a player, uh, and maybe you have to retain a little bit. Like if the Oilers even retained 2 million and the Sharks took 7 of it, that would even help a ton. But I'd like to try and get some team to take the full bore off the Oilers' back because that is what's really going to open up the space they need to make substantial changes to this roster.
Well, and I think it was Ryan Rashog who pointed it out on the Got Your Back podcast the other night. If you're retaining any money on Darnell Nurse, Because if you move out Darnell Nurse and you're not bringing a defenseman back,
Yeah.
then say you're retaining 2 million on Nurse, then you've got 7 million to find his replacement. And Darnell Nurse is a top four defenseman on this team, so you have $7 million to spend on a top four defenseman. So they just got to be really careful. I mean, I think it's time for Nurse to move on, but that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
But they just have to be really careful about how they do it. So either you're getting another defenseman back in the deal, or like you said, you're getting rid of the full nine or as close to it as you can because you're going to need that money to replace him.
Okay, well, let's just say that we'll end it here and we'll move on. But like if San Jose were on board with that, if they said, you know what, Nurse is a veteran leader, he can come in and help this team because he's got 4 years left on his deal. Maybe that by then San Jose thinks they're contenders and they won't re-sign him. But for the next few years, Nurse can come in here and help this group come along as a guy who's been in the league for over a decade. And we have a lot of young players on this team. If they say, okay, we'll take the full contract on, would you rather do that kind of a deal, or would you rather send him to Toronto for Morgan Riley and get a defenseman back?
No, I'd rather have the money outright. But for like giving both guys a fresh start, I'd be open to the Morgan Riley deal. But obviously, the far more would rather have the full nine point two
Yeah.
five million or as close to it as you can. You might have to take like a smaller contract back or something, but as close as they can get to freeing up that money, well, obviously would be the far more ideal
And they have a
solution.
ton of young forwards, right? And that's sort of what the
Yeah,
Oilers need. Maybe they could pry a player like Colin Graff out of there.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
well,
anything they could do to free up the money. Yeah,
right. And I'm okay taking a cheaper contract back from another team if that's okay, but you would rather have not have to take anything.
yeah.
And attaching assets to get rid of him is something that I'd also prefer not to do because we've seen that happen enough times.
Well, like you mentioned, I don't think they have to do that. I think he's got enough value. Like he's been a top four defenseman, and he's certainly not perfect. I mean, his biggest flaw is that he makes 9.25 million.
If Darnell Nurse was a $6 million defenseman, I don't think there would be any trade chatter about him.
No, or if you had to trade him, it wouldn't be. Oh well, that's not a huge deal to try and move a $6 million contract.
And we don't need to go too far down a Darnell Nurse rabbit hole, but it all goes back to that bridge deal he signed in 2018.
Yeah.
He didn't show up to training camp because he didn't have a deal, signed halfway through training camp, and then they just kept bridging him until it came time in 2021 to sign that big extension. If they could have just signed him to a 7x7 deal a couple of years earlier, that would have even made a big difference. But it wasn't the direction that Holland decided to go at that time. So nothing we can do about
Well,
it
if you
now.
want to go even further, Oscar Clefbaum. If Clefbaum
Yep.
doesn't get hurt, Darnell Nurse isn't a high paid defenseman. He's a second pairing defenseman, probably paid appropriately.
And here's the thing, like you look at Adam Larson, it's just tragic what happened with his dad.
Absolutely.
Visits Edmonton to come see his son, and sadly passes away on a trip to Edmonton. And so I completely understand why Larson needed a fresh start. And really, things got were there were awkward right from the start because of how much pressure there was on him coming over in the Taylor Hall trade. 1 for 1, everything like that. But imagine another scenario like an alternate universe where Oscar Clefbaum has a clean bill of health and there's no tragic loss in Adam Larson's life, and those two guys are still on the team today. Like the Oilers literally lost their top pairing D through no fault of their own.
Hmm. I think we have two Stanley Cups right now. I think that if that's how everything goes down.
If you have those two guys plus the pieces you've brought in and Darnell Nurse not getting overpaid, which gives them the money to add other pieces,
Yeah.
we,
No,
we
I think
pro
we have two Stanley Cups.
yeah.
I think that makes enough of a difference that pushes us over the edge
Do
to get
we
those.
do we get really bold and even saying they win in 2023 as well and they're a three-peat dynasty?
Could very well be. Yeah. No, like
It's crazy, isn't
that's
it?
how big of an impact like Clefbaum and Larson had.
It's
Yeah,
when you say it out loud, it just gets really frustrating
it does.
because
But I mean,
it's
every
the
team has those stories, though.
I know it's the
Yeah.
difference between the Oilers either having a dynasty or multiple championships at least, and sitting here with just two Western Conference banners. But anyway, we'll move on from that. Up next is Spencer Stastny. He had one goal and no assists in 36 games with the Oilers last season after being acquired from the Nashville Predators in December. He was also a healthy scratch for all six playoff games this year. I think it's pretty clear that he's a seventh or eighth defenseman on a cup contender. So would you just extend a qualifying offer to him knowing that he doesn't really have a case for anything more than the 825,000 he's currently making?
Yeah, at most a qualifying offer because I'm totally fine if he just leaves. I mean he's fine. I don't have anything against him, but like other guys we've talked about, he's a replacement player. You can easily replace him.
Yeah, and I know he's good friends with Ty Emberson. They played in the USHL together, and uh, I think they ended up being a pair together at some point for a couple games last season. But my point being is that Ty Emberson is higher on the depth chart than him, and I think that when the Oilers lineup is healthy, he's probably sitting in the press box.
Yeah. No, like if he came back, I'm not against it, but he's easily replaced as well.
Yeah,
So if you can find someone better or you want to give the opportunity to a younger player, do that.
for sure. All right, and we'll close out the show with a couple of goalies now. And first up is one of the most interesting names we'll talk about tonight, and that's Connor Ingram. Look, based on performance, I think Ingram definitely deserves a contract extension. But with the Oilers already looking for an upgrade in goal and Tristan Jarry under contract for another 2 years, do you think this might just be a situation where the Oilers' hands are tied and they have to let him walk?
I think they're in a hands tied situation. The only way Connor Ingram can stay is if you can find a way to move Tristan Jarry. And I don't think you have a way of moving Tristan Jarry right now unless you're attaching assets to him. And similar to Darnell Nurse, I don't want to do that. There was rumors about maybe if you send Tristan Jarry to the St. Louis Blues for Jordan Binnington, and then you get Binnington at 1 year instead of Jarry at 2 years, but then you're still taking a risk on Jordan Binnington. Are they really they're getting out of a year of a contract, but are they really upgrading? Because obviously Jordan Binnington, despite a strong performance at the Four Nations, he hasn't been the same goaltender that he used to be. So that's pretty much the only solution I could think of where the Oilers can move on from Tristan Jarry. So as long as Tristan Jarry's still here, I don't think Connor Ingram can be, and that's unfortunate because I really thought Connor Ingram came in here and played fantastic, and we didn't know what to expect. Obviously, after him being up and down in Bakersfield, but he came in and played really, really well. But I don't think this team can come back with Tristan Jarry and Connor Ingram. They have to come back with at least one new goaltender. So if Tristan Jarry's still here, Connor Ingram just unfortunately can't be.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm pretty sure 99% of Oilers fans would rather have Ingram back, but I mean, there's no trade value around the league. I just don't know if you can sell another team on having Jari as their backup goalie. Now, he did have, I believe, a 909 save percentage with the Penguins before he was traded to Edmonton this season. So maybe another team thinks if they have a better defensive system that he could get back to being what he was prior to the trade. But it's just with the injury history and the reputation of not being good in the playoffs, even though he hasn't been in the playoffs that many times. I don't know. I can't see a situation where the Oilers would be able to trade him without retaining on it. And that's one of the frustrating things about the deal that they made last year is that they didn't get the Penguins to bring that cap number down at all. So it looks like it's going to really force them to just bring back Tristan Jarry as a $5.5 million backup uh I mean I really want to keep Connor Ingram. I mean I think that he's an ideal backup if you can get a starter, a legitimate starter ahead of him. And there's been times where Connor Ingram has shown that he could be a starting quality goalie in the NHL, but it's just going to be a situation where he's pushed out because they can't get rid of the guy that's under
Yeah,
contract for another couple of years. It's just as frustrating as we're talking about earlier with the Clefbaum and Larson thing because I mean, the Oilers that were searching for a goalie, and this guy falls into your lap for future considerations last September. It just makes you wish that they would have given him the opportunity first before they made the Jari trade. Run
Well, that's
with
just
run with Skinner and Ingram, and then make your decisions after that.
yeah, I was just about to say that. Like, I mean, that this solves so many problems if you just give Connor Ingram the chance before making that deal. Because
I
I
think
think the
Bowman felt the
Oilers,
pressure, though. He felt the
oh,
pressure to make a deal.
for sure he did, and I'm sure some of that pressure came down from Daryl Cates and stuff too.
Get me another
Okay,
goalie.
get a
So,
goalie in here, but you still had time. You could have given Connor Ingram that chance. Like, it didn't have to be a long audition. Like, give him 2 weeks or something like that, because the Oilers could have finished in the exact same spot they did anyway with Stuart Skinner and Connor Ingram. Could have let Stu go as a free agent. You've got, I mean,
and then
shoulda, woulda, coulda,
now you're
but
looking at more like
yeah.
21.5 million in free agency this summer.
Well, that and you included Brett Kulak in that deal, and you had to spend another second round pick just to essentially replace Brett Kulak with Connor
Although,
Murphy.
I mean, in fairness, Kulak wasn't playing that great at the start of this season. He is a known playoff performer, and I think
Mhm.
the Oilers should have kept that into consideration. But
Yeah,
let's, I mean, I can recall some games earlier in the year that he didn't play that well. And I think that with him needing a new contract this summer too, the Oilers thought, well, his play is declining and he's probably going to be looking for more money. So we're going to move him out now. So that one I'll give Bowman a little bit of a pass on. It's just the fact of not getting them to retain any money that's the part that hurts, or at least not test running Ingram first.
yeah, they had to do something. They had to get money retained, or I mean, part of the reason Brett Kulak was in that deal as well to make the money work. So if money's retained, then Brett Kulak doesn't need to be in that deal. At the same time, you could have kept Brett Kulak as your own
Rental.
your own free agency rental, and let him walk if he
Yep.
was going to be outpriced. So a lot of different ways they could have handled that situation. Just bottom line, it was a bad trade, and now Connor Ingram's probably going to pay the price for it, unfortunately.
Yeah. It sucks. And lastly, the goalie we're going to talk about is who our friend Russ Jericho is the undisputed biggest fan of, and that's, of course, Calvin Pickard. And look, I will always have an appreciation for Pickard. I think it's a great story that he was able to work his way back to the NHL after nearly 2 full years in the minors. And he was brought into some extremely high pressure situations in the 2024 and 2025 playoffs when the Oilers season was on the line and picked up some huge wins that allowed the Oilers to reach the Stanley Cup final in consecutive years. He was also the first Oilers goalie to start 6-0 in the playoffs since Grant Fuhr in 1987. But after they traded away two new goalies in season and then waived him, I think almost everyone in oil country knew that Pickard wouldn't be back next season. So, do you agree it's basically a foregone conclusion that Pickard will be out of the organization on July 1st?
Oh yeah, he's gone, and he knows he's gone. And like you said, Calvin Pickard is going to go down as a fantastic Oiler. He came in, everything he did for this organization, you couldn't have asked for anything more from him. He stepped in, saved this team's butt in two playoff runs. He was fantastic. He was in a great tandem goalie for the Oilers, and it's unfortunate how it rolled out here. You wish he could have at least won one Stanley Cup and got
Right.
his name on there because he definitely deserved to have it. But if we're talking about Connor Ingram not having a spot on this team, then obviously Calvin Pickard doesn't have one either.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, even down in Bakersfield, there's no room for him either. They've got too many young goalies coming up. And
I mean, I think Matt Tompkins even needs to be out because the Oilers
yeah,
have three young guys in Samuel Janssen, Connor Unger, and Nathan Day. I think Nathan Day is probably going to be staying in the ECHL, but you should really be elevating those two guys. And I mean, they're both 24 and 22 years old. I mean, get them into Bakersfield and let them split the starts and see if one of them can eventually work their way up and seize the starter role, have that healthy competition between the two of them. But, with Matt Tompkins still there as well, until they decide what they're going to do there. There's just no room for Calvin Picker at this point. And we know it, he knows it, and you know we wish you well. It's been awesome watching you, and I hope he lands somewhere in the NHL. But if not, I'm sure he'll have plenty of AHL options where he could extend his pro career if he wants to.
Oh, for sure, he can keep playing somewhere. You might have to be, like you said, in a number 3 role. I mean, he'd probably be hard pressed to land a backup role anywhere, but he could go into a
Yeah,
situation similar. I mean, let's not forget he came into Edmonton as the number 3 goalie and worked his way up into the top pairing, so he could go into a similar situation with a different team, find himself starting as the number 3 and then work himself into the main tandem. You just never know. Odds aren't as great, obviously, with the years added on here, but he's a goalie that has his ups and downs, but his ups are much more often and frequent than his downs are. So
for sure.
he's been a fantastic Oiler, and like you, wish him all the best here.
For sure. And Patrick, I want to thank you again for joining me on the show tonight. Where can people follow you and find your content?
So I'm on X, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Oilers Fanatic YT, and of course on YouTube, the Oilers Fanatic, giving you guys game rundowns and following all the latest news here on the Edmonton Oilers. And it's going to be an exciting summer here, and obviously can't wait to get it going full steam in the fall again.
Yeah, you're a busy guy, especially even in the summer when it just seems like there's never a day where there isn't some Oilers news, even though the team's been done playing for a month and they're a month away from free agency being open. It's just there's never a shortage of things to talk about in oil country. And I love your videos. I can't wait to keep watching what you have coming up for the rest of the summer. And I want to say I also appreciate you highlighting some of my tweets and the major Oilers milestones that I put out there. So that's always appreciated as well, my friend.
Oh, for sure. I love your stats, Eric, and they're always a great addition to every video. The amount of work you do to keep up with all that stuff, I wouldn't even know half this stuff is happening. And want to give Russ Jericho another shout out right there
For
with you
sure.
with keeping up with stats and everything. You and
Yeah.
Russ just do an incredible job. I wouldn't even want to try to keep up with you with all that stuff. I'm glad we have two great sources in you and Russ to rely upon.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. And so everyone go give Patrick a follow. And you can also follow me at Eric J. Fries. And you can follow this podcast at 99 Forever Pod. This was awesome, man. Looking forward to doing more podcasts with you next season.
Absolutely. Can't wait. Thank you so much, Eric. It's been an honor and love the pod and so glad we got the chance to finally do this.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. All right. So for Patrick Phillips, I'm Eric Friesen. This has been the 99 Forever Podcast. We're out.